For today's coffee break conversation, Jason Olvera, one of our outstanding substance use disorder clinicians, joins us for a conversation. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
So like I said, you're a clinician within our substance use disorder treatment team. Can you talk a little bit about your specific role in the work that you do?
I am in the SUD department, substance use disorder. I'm one of the clinicians out there. I basically work in Montcalm and Ionia County, splitting my time between the two, and I do both outpatient and outreach, so keeps me pretty busy.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about what the difference between outpatient and outreach services are?
Outpatient is, they come into the office, they're coming to us in the office setting. But then outreach is for those clients that do have some transportation difficulties. Mm-hmm. So there are those of us who are even still post-COVID. Are we allowed to say post-COVID now? Have we officially gone there? Meeting the clients' homes. I mean, I know that there are some clinicians that still aren't comfortable with that, but for myself, I'm willing to do that.
So with outreach, you could meet them like at a park even?
Yeah, typically it's at their home or a park. We can do that. Try to find a space that's going to be private where we can actually still have a session and be able to talk about things without worry of other people. But
is the main difference just the location, or is there a different approach to each type of service?
For some clients, outreach helps them open up better because they're in their environment, it's their home, they're more comfortable. So the rapport, I think, sometimes is built a little quicker in the outreach setting as opposed to coming to the office. It's new, they're adjusting to the setting because now, they're in a different environment. It's your safe space as opposed to theirs. But hopefully, given time, it also becomes a safe place for them too.
Great. So you mentioned you work in Montcalm and Ionia counties, and I know in those counties we offer medication-assisted treatment.
Correct.
Or MAT services.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit what those are and why someone might decide that they need medication to aid in their recovery process?
Yeah, so typically the primary for MAT, medicated assisted therapy, is for individuals struggling with opiate addiction.
Okay.
So that's, whether that's Vicodin or heroin, both opiates. So it's for those individuals. We don't have a lot of medications to help clients with other types of substances, but when it comes to opiates, we do have a medication that can help them. And the one that we primarily use here at Wedgwood in our Ionia office is Suboxone.
Okay.
It comes in various different forms. Suboxone's Sublocade, that's the injection, Subutex. So we do use those. There's also Vivitrol. But primarily it's Suboxone, and we've been using more the Sublocade. So basically what the whole point of the medication is to abate the physical withdrawal symptoms of opiate addiction. So then we can get the client out of a state of, kind of chaos and panic and concern about feeling sick. Because whatever their primary reason for beginning to abuse opiates, oftentimes the reason they continue to abuse opiates is to keep from feeling sick. So if we're able to abate the withdrawal symptoms of opiate addiction, we can then hopefully begin to work on some of those more psychological aspects of why we are where we are. Obviously, opiate addiction for some people has become a coping mechanism, and hopefully we can help them rewire their brain into more healthy coping mechanisms than obviously something that worked but wasn't exactly healthy.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that addiction doesn't happen in a vacuum, so there's always something else going on.
Yeah, and that's something that I've learned in my years, because I've prior to coming to Wedgwood, I also worked at another clinic when I lived in Illinois that also did MAT, and at first I myself too was like a little bit hesitant, coming out of training and thinking, how is this a good thing? But then once you've actually worked with a population and you see its benefits, it's really hard to argue with the evidence. And so it was I had to go through my own transformation myself. So it does have its benefits, and I am an advocate for it. Whereas at one time I wasn't wholly on board, but I definitely am today.
Is this something someone will have to do for the rest of their life, or just for a duration to get them to a healthier place?
Hopefully, the goal obviously is to not have to be on it for the remainder of their life. But there's a lot of different variables that go into that. Everybody's body chemistry is different, because when you start abusing opiates, your body does produce its own endogenous opiates. And so when you begin to introduce outside opiates, which have a tendency to do a much better job than the endogenous, your body stops producing.
Oh, okay.
And so then you need, which is basically where the withdrawal can kind of come from, because you're now left at a deficit. And so hopefully given enough time, the medication is supposed to be able to help the brain heal itself.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we don't have a magical little machine we can hook people up to and go dee, 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 and spits out a little piece of paper and says, congratulations, you reached. So you kind of just go with it. How I typically approach it is they get on the medication. Hopefully they realize that the medication is just abating the withdrawal symptoms, that now we can work on some of those underlying issues of why did we start abusing in the first place. And for whatever reason that may be, whether that's childhood trauma, whether that's just trauma in general, even as in an adult's life. Or, I mean, I've had those cases where, you have clients who end up with a surgery and are prescribed opiates long term. And as one addictionologist I worked with back in Illinois, he would often say there is not a human being that God has not created that if you put on opiates for a long period of time will not become physically dependent. So, it kind of changes your view of like, how is this all working? Because, we kind of have some of those old mindsets of, well, this is your fault, the reason why you're here. Well, maybe not necessarily when it comes to something like opiates, when the path that led them was, unfortunately, the medical field. And so what we begin to try to do then is just to help them relearn coping skills. Like, how are we dealing with trauma? How are we dealing with frustrations? How are we dealing with family dynamics and those types of things? And then once they begin to illustrate those skills that we're hopefully helping them learn, that we can get to the place where we can go like, do you feel like you're ready to maybe potentially kind of wean down the medication? Because I think that's the only real way you're ever going to find out if you can get off, is to begin that process. And obviously that can look very different for different people. And so that's a long answer to the question. I mean, so for some people, yes, I have a client currently who I'm seeing now, and they have, they're now going, I think it is between 60 and 90 days without any medication now. And so the goal with her right now is I'm following her post the transition from medication to without medication, just to make sure that we've, transitioning successfully. And so those are really encouraging to see that happen. But I can't take credit for any of it. It's really the client that puts in that work. But then there are other clients who it may be a lifetime thing, and I know that this is still an area that some clinicians struggle with, the whole harm reduction. So for some clients, it does come down to simply being that it's a harm reduction mechanism that at least keeps them alive. And so whatever your thoughts or opinions may be, you really can't argue with that.
So when someone is involved in Wedgwood's MAT services, they're not doing it alone, and they're surrounded by a team is kind of addressing all different areas. So it's not just about the medication, it's not just about therapy, it's all of it together. Yeah, so when they come into the clinic in Ionia, we have the counselors, we have the prescribing physician, we have a recovery coach, we have a case manager. So they have access to all of these people to help them navigate this. So as the counselor, we focus on, those skills. As a recovery coach, it's somebody who has lived experience. So I've been there, done that. And then the case managers to help with any other life issues that they may have to kind of stabilize. We're
we're not just looking to stabilize their addiction, we're looking to stabilize their life. So that's where, case management can come in too, to help with things like transportation, with housing, with getting and with doctors and stuff like that. So it's a pretty rounded thing. So and it's nice because you can talk back and forth with each other and be like, share concerns. Like, I do have a client who may benefit from case management, so we refer over there, and so, but it works out nice. So it's sometimes nice to get the input from the doc, and the doc will come to us and get input from us, so we can kind of all be on the same page. So
you really focus on each person needs.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. So you mentioned a couple of the opiates that you see a lot of your clients struggling with, but are there other substances that you're seeing across a lot of your cases right now that people are struggling with? Other
than opiates? Methamphetamine is on the rise. I've seen a significant increase in that. And so sometimes, we get clients in there, we get them on MAT, maintenance medication, and so we've fixed the opiate issue, but then sometimes we also have clients who then start dabbling with something else. And that kind of speaks to are they utilizing the skills that we're trying to help them discover? Because this is, I kind of look at counseling as it's a walk beside, you're not leading them, you're walking beside them. Like, they're the expert on their lives. We're just there to kind of help clarify, help them process. But yeah, so methamphetamine has a tendency to be one of those. It's pretty major. I mean, probably next to opiates, methamphetamine is probably my next highest.
And is that in kids too, or mostly adults?
Well, I primarily work with the adult population,
okay.
So young adult, so they're 18 or older. But yeah, it's across the board. And meth is its own unique beast. Even just like alcohol is its own unique beast, opiates its own unique beast, methamphetamine's its own unique beast. And the problem with methamphetamine is, unlike opiates, we don't have anything to help them with that. And so it's just like, you really have to have the mindset of, do I desire change? And that's where it comes from. At least the methamphetamine people the individuals that I am dealing with that struggle with methamphetamine abuse, the ones that are able to break that cycle, they have to put in the work. And they will say that, like, I just woke up one day and said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And so it is. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. And I think sometimes that's the misconception, that people think that all you got to do is just
stop using. Yeah.
It's like, well, it's hard. We are creatures of habit. We talk about wanting to live better lives, and so when we kind of look at ourselves individually, what's like one of the things that we can do to help ourselves individually? Everybody across the board could do. Well, you could exercise and eat better. Well, tell me how successful each and every one of us is at that. It's a struggle bus. So, and that's nothing compared to a substance. So it's just a matter of perspective.
What has God made clear to you through your work here at Wedgwood?
Patience. I used to joke when I was younger, don't ask for patience because God will give you children. But patience really is it. Like, especially for us as clinicians, we want to help people. I mean, that's the whole reason why we're in this field, is we want to help. We want to see people live their best self. And so sometimes when they come into our office, we have just look at people, we can see potential, and it's like, okay, let's do this. Let's begin this journey. And that journey may take a little longer than we might as clinicians like to see, or it's not progressing the way we might want to see it progressing. So that's part of the thing, like I believe that, that God is teaching is not in your timing, not in their timing, but it's ultimately my timing. And I've said this before, God is never late, he's never early, he's always on time. And so it's just a matter of being there when you need to be there and allowing God to do the rest. So it's just like, okay, I will do what I know that I need to be doing, and hopefully the client is doing what they need to be doing, and with that, hopefully, change will come, because I absolutely believe that change is possible.
Well, like you said a little bit ago, it's a really hard process.
Yes.
So of course it's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time. And I have a couple of clients that are going on 3 years with me. So, so that's kind of one of the different things with the MAT program too, is there's no clear, when is this going to end? Because like I said, there's no magic machine we can plug people into and say, okay, you've reached this place and now we can take the medication away from you. And it's you got to be very careful about doing that, because you don't want to prematurely do that to a client and then you be their next reason for using. It's because you are trying to implement what you feel is best for them instead of doing what is best for them. So
we've talked about how this is a long and hard journey, and often can be a lifelong journey in recovery, and it's hard to start. What would you say to a new client or someone who is considering seeking support for their substance use?
Open-minded. Be open-minded. And I've said this to clients before, because I think sometimes clients come in and they're like, okay, you've gone to college, so you're supposed to have all the answers. And I have said it to clients before, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert on you, you're an expert on you. So just go in there with an open mind, and as long as you're open and honest and you desire change, we will work with you. We will try to move mountains if that's what it takes to help you get to where you want to be, but you really have to want it.
Do you have advice or encouragement for people who have a loved one who are struggling with substance use, how they can support them?
Boundaries is what I would probably say, is you got to have healthy boundaries.
Okay.
Because we want to be able to be there for our loved ones, but if we don't have established boundaries ourselves, we can be a hindrance rather than a help. And so it's just having those boundaries, being able to help, but then know where that line is of if you're doing all the work and they're doing nothing, then it's kind of counterintuitive. So it's establishing boundaries, it's being there for them, being there when you need them, but knowing what those boundaries look like. And so I would definitely say, if you have a client if you have somebody in your family or a friend that is dealing with substance abuse, support groups. They have support groups for family members of people who are struggling with an addiction. So they're out there, and they can help you too.
Can the Wedgwood team help families kind of set some boundaries or figure out how to get connected to resources?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, we definitely have resources to help family with that. There have been times where a client will bring in a family member, and we can kind of talk about those things, but you have to also be very careful how you navigate those kind of conversations too. But yeah, FAN is probably one of the better known, Families Against Narcotics.
Okay.
It's probably a better known a support group for families. So yeah.
Great. What do you want to make sure that our listeners and community know about Wedgwood substance use treatment and the work that you and your team do?
When I look at Wedgwood, I think when most people still, even today, look at Wedgwood, we see all the things that they do for adolescents and all the things that we do for children. And when people look at a child, their heart goes out. They want to help them. And so, for the community, for donors, they're more willing to give in those types of instances. But when it comes to the SUD community, especially the adult population, they tend to hit a wall when it comes to community, when it comes to individuals being willing to step up and put themselves out on the line and say, I'm willing to give you this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to donate time. I'm willing to donate energy. I'm willing to donate money to this cause, because the payoff isn't as glorious, because it is frontline work for sure, and it's not a instant payoff. You're not going to see results so quickly, and so I think that can be difficult, especially for the community, especially for donors, especially when they want to see like what I'm giving is having some return. But addiction is messy, and it is hard, and it is difficult, and it also takes time to get where we want to go. There's a question that reminds me on the assessment that we do, the ASAM assessment. And I find it interesting because the question is, do you have difficulties waiting, or when it comes to receiving something, can you work towards something that's only going to have a long-term payoff? And so sometimes I feel like maybe we should be asking other people that, like, because most people would think, well, no, I don't. But then when you really think about it, yeah, we do. And so, especially when we are trying to help the community, we want to see a lot of instant results. And when it comes to the SUD community, it's gonna take time. But this is where my faith comes in. When I look at my own life, it has taken me a long time for God to bring me to where I am today. And thankfully, He's not as impatient as I am, or as impulsive, or as... and I've often said this, like, if I were God, I would have given up on me a long time ago and said, you know what, forget this guy, I can't do it. But He's not like that. And so sometimes it's a matter of us trying to put on that same mindset of, this is a long haul journey, not a quick race.
And, you pointed out that Wedgwood is long associated with helping kids and adolescents, but helping the adults in the community too creates a healthy community for kids, makes healthy parents.
Absolutely.
So it's all, we help kids by helping parents and adults. And
absolutely. Because we have to understand that the environments that these kids are in, that's the adult population. And if you want to help kids, you got to help their parents, you got to help their aunts, you got to help their uncles, you got to help their grandmother, you got to help their grandfather. Because I'm working currently with a couple of older people, and sometimes it's difficult, because it's like, how do I navigate this when I just see this? We have a tendency as humans to look at kids and think, oh, sweet and adorable. And we look at old people, oh, sweet and adorable. I can't be harsh with them. But addiction is not, it's not discriminating. Whether you're 14 or whether you're 60, it'll get you. And so, it's the full whatever.
Full spectrum.
All that out too.
So how can people in West Michigan learn more about our recovery services or get connected to support?
They can go to our website at wedgwood.org. And then I also believe we're on Twitter, and we have an Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel, and we have a Facebook. So, there are multiple avenues to get connected with us. And then we're also doing events in the community all the time too. I see those on our Facebook page all the time. So
I'll make sure all of that information is in our episode description, and the intake line number and the website where people can learn more. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so great to chat with you about the important work that you're doing. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us and our community.
No problem.